Don't move. Bigger. Why do they always have to go bigger?
Hello everyone and welcome back to another Backlog Banter movie review. Today we are here to talk about the end of the Jurassic series. Of course, Jurassic World Dominion is now out in theaters and we have seen it on opening night. You know, crowded theater, lots of loud dinosaur roars, but if you want to talk to us about dinosaurs or movies or anything else at all, you can join our Discord. Link is in the top of the description. And like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, you can ring the bell, and you can leave a little comment on your thoughts on the Jurassic series as a whole. Because it's come to an end now and we can sort of talk about it in sort of a complete way. But Tanner, give me your opening thoughts on Jurassic World Dominion.
You know, Tucker, my review on Letterboxd says this. There's a lot of times where, delving into deeply what makes a movie flawed is a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice when it's very simple what makes a movie bad.
Yeah,
This
sure.
movie, Jurassic World Dominion, is a poorly written movie, and everyone is bad in it, except for a select few, except for a handful of people, and even then, they're kind of marginal. It's as simple as that. This movie is not well written or constructed, and all the actors are turning astoundingly poor performances.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot more to it than that in terms of negatives, but those negatives are so broad and all-encompassing across this
Very
2.5 hour...
pervasive.
Very pervasive across the 2.5 hour runtime that they really just bear down on my score and my thoughts on this film.
It's very surprising how many of the lines in this movie don't land because they're poorly written or their delivery by the actors doesn't land because they're turning in lame performances, or man, I wish they'd done another take of that. Man, I wish that there'd been some better direction on how the characters are supposed to be feeling in this moment. A lot of the problems with this movie, you're right, come down to that writing and cringing at moments that characters are supposed to be taken seriously, or reactions from characters that feel entirely out of place. Because outside of that, and also I think the editing also being a pretty big problem, not in incredibly heinous, but disorienting to say the very least. I think this is a fine, modern blockbuster, high production value, good to great action sequences, fantastic CGI. I like the idea of us tying together the first trilogy and this trilogy through this last film, but I think you were right in your assessment that this film is weighed down by its pervasive poor qualities. In its writing and acting that I think also apply not only to the characters' writing, but to the plot and the story that we're following along, and everything just kind of feel slapdash together in haphazard ways.
Yeah, I think that slapdash is a great word for this story, because we have our legacy characters and we have our Jurassic World characters, and they are largely in their own circles and have their own stories in this film. And having them sort of atomized in this film is not great for the pacing overall. There are 20 to 30, even 40-minute stretches of this movie where we're like, where are the other set of characters that we're following? What is going on? Why are we spending so much time, jumping between these two stories? Why haven't we brought them together already? Or why weren't they intertwined from closer to the very beginning of the film? Sure. It really just makes the film feel meandering up until maybe its
last
conclusion.
act.
Exactly. Yeah. When we do bring those characters together, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and all the characters do come together, and I think another reason why this film is imbalanced and feels feels sort of weighed down by itself is because there are a lot of characters in this movie. You mentioned the two main groups, and I think those are sort of the obvious ones to pull together. The main cast from the new movies, the main cast from the old movies. Fine, simple. Do that. But I also tie in a number of other, I believe, entirely new supporting characters, none of whom I think are heinously terrible. I think they're maybe some of the aspects of this film that I, found some enjoyment out of. But adding more characters into this mix until where you're in this final action sequence and there is easily 10 characters that you have to worry about and keep track of and wonder what they're doing. And when they're all running from a dinosaur or huddling together, it's this cartoonishly large group of people. And that is a writing problem. Absolutely. Is just don't write this extra character in. Just don't, like, figure out another way for us to be a little simpler. This movie is just overworn with the amount of people that are involved in it.
There is literally, I won't get into specifics of the context around these. There is two subsequent shots of like or groups of characters. Like, this is the shot that has all the characters in it. There's two of those, and they're separated by about 20 minutes, I would say. And in between, we literally double the number of people that are in those shots. It is a cartoonishly large group of people, as you said, Tucker. But yeah, okay. So I want to go down to what we thought this film was going to be from the get-go. And if you're watching this review and haven't seen the film, or you're trying to decide to go, let me tell you, if you're going in expecting this film to be entirely dinosaurs in the real world, we're going on some sort of globe-trotting adventure, trying to wrangle up all these dinosaurs somehow, some way, something resembling that sort of plot line, it's not that. It is that for a bit. We sort of get a ramp up into that, essentially. But then I would say the back half of this movie is just we're in a park again, essentially. Which is
a
really
tropical park with electric fences and jeeps driving around in dirt, and it devolves back into what literally the last 5 Jurassic Park movies have done.
Which is really disappointing to me. This felt like a thing that we were leading up to. Oh my god, dinosaurs in the real world. Finally, we got through the slog that was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Yeah. And now the dinosaurs are in the real world, and we got a taste. Just a little taste of that with like the opening montage of this film, and then a pretty solid action sequence towards the middle, and then we're back in a park. Like, yeah. That's another thing that really weighs down on this. It's just like this squandered opportunity. Really.
Yeah, it definitely is a squandered opportunity. But for me, to give credit where credit is due, I'm glad that they at least made the attempt. And I do think that a good portion of this movie takes place in significantly more diverse locations than we've seen in the rest of these films. When you talk about the one location being jungly and foresty and jeeps and mud and rain, that's what all those other movies do. And when we're getting, in the trailer it shows an action sequence in the sky with a Quetzal fucking attacking a plane. You get some action sequences in the snow. You get on the streets of a city. That is more diverse. That is more interesting. And there are aspects of dinosaur breeding that are lightly explored. There's the dinosaur sort of fight clubs. There's dinosaur black market and all these aspects, and just watching the shots of dinosaurs wandering around environments that we have not seen before are absolutely the best aspects of the film, and they are what gives this movie its identity. It's like, oh, this is the idea that they were leading towards, of finally escaping a single island, a single park. Dinosaurs are integrated into human culture, and I found that to be immensely fascinating. And I was lightly disappointed when we end up devolving back to just a park, but I think that it's a larger pro than a con for me, especially because still there is a significant portion of the movie where we're not just relegated to the park.
This is very true. But it really feels like when they're like, all right, we gotta wrap up the Jurassic Park series, what do? Go back to a park. That's our safe space. That's where we feel most comfortable. We'll go back to a park. So yeah, I mean, you're right, Tucker. There is a good chunk of this film that does not take place in that park, but the latter half does. So yeah, for what it's worth. But I do want to talk about what we alluded to at the beginning: the poor writing and the poor characters. It's astounding how bad these performances are. People have, cast aspersions upon, your Bryce Dallas Howards and your Chris Pratts, that they don't really have chemistry in those Jurassic World films, and I would agree, it's a persistent problem into this film as well, when they're supposed to be this lovey-dovey, basically married couple with their clone daughter. But even bringing back our legacy characters, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and even to some extent Jeff Goldblum, are all bad in this movie. Yeah. Particularly the first two, Neill and Dern. Not good. And I don't know how to nail down in detail what this is, but I think it's got to be writing, it's got to be direction, it's got to be something along those lines. Just
Yeah.
because we know these people have turned in good performances in the past, and I think it's just they're sleepwalking through this movie essentially. They got a huge paycheck to come back. It's probably not coming from a place of like, we're wrapping up the Jurassic Park series. Oh man, all this immense care that we have for this series. It really feels like this is a chore for these people.
It's kind of sad to see all of these characters that, you expect and you see in those trailers, you expect there to be sort of a reverence for these characters, a reverence for the history, but that you don't really feel that here.
Yeah.
And I think that is also another reason why this feels a little bit disappointing. I wish that it had leaned more heavily on the history of Jurassic Park, of the fact that we have these sequels to the original film that aren't really talked about much anymore. I wish that there had been sort of a conclusive culmination. And this is that to a certain extent, bringing together the two groups of characters, but they don't lean into that in a way that it doesn't take the fan service all the way, which would have been fun, and it doesn't go all the way on its own, which would have also been fun. It's sort of like a half middle ground where I feel like it doesn't appease either audience.
Yeah.
But one aspect of this film that I do want to talk about that is absolutely in that bad writing and acting camp, but ends up actually being a positive for this film, is the performance by the main villain of this film, who is Campbell Scott, the actor Campbell Scott, portraying Lewis Dodgson. And he is hilariously terrible.
Hilarious, yeah.
He's hilariously terrible in this film. His line deliveries and the lines that are written for him and the ways he reacts to situations are just superfluous. They make no sense. Why would someone act this way? What is the goal behind this guy's performance? It makes no sense. But if you are able to buy into how stupid this guy is and how lame of a villain he is, I think there's some of the funniest moments to be had watching this guy bumble his way through sequences and just say the most random, heinous nonsense possible.
Yeah. I assume that what Campbell Scott was going for here was this sort of eccentric, bumbling, sort of antisocial billionaire type of guy. I don't know if he fully accomplishes that in the way that he was meaning to, but it is a laugh out loud performance.
Yes.
Whether or not he intended it to be, to a certain extent. Because he is not finishing sentences, he is delivering all his lines in basically the same tone of voice, which is a bewildered and confused tone of voice all the time, even when he's in control of a situation.
But I ended up having fun with it, and I think
I think so. Yeah, as I said, it wraps around like 98% of being like, this guy's gotta be doing this on purpose, and I certainly hope so. And maybe if there's even something to that he is this guy who he's a character from the first film, not the same actor, but the same character. And he maybe just stumbled into the CEO position because he had these embryos, and he is just a dumb guy who's now running a multi-billion-dollar geneticist corporation.
Yeah, and the final thing I want to say in terms of the writing is that we mentioned how slapdash together the film feels, and I think that is especially true when it comes to the plot, because when you sit down and you think about the movie afterwards, you're like, what was his plan? Where did this go wrong? Why were these people here? What, like, there is such a weave together of let's just get excuses for our characters to be in dangerous situations that feels blatantly obvious, and by the end of the film there aren't too many plot lines that are wrapped up satisfyingly. There are basically no plot twists throughout the entire course of the film, and it's not the worst aspect of the film, because I think it's not interesting, but it's serviceable to get our characters into those situations. The writing definitely does suffer most in the dialogue and the characters, but the plot is not good either.
No,
it really is not good.
There's too many conflicts in this. There's too many subplots. There's too many characters with arcs, which a lot of times they don't have arcs, or a lot of times those arcs don't get wrapped up. So yeah, the movie puts too much on its plate and finishes basically none of it. It's going to be a 4 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, and I'm following that same boat. I think I might end up a little more positive than you, because I think there is some fun to be had with the spectacle of this film, because it is a good spectacle. The action sequences that we didn't really get into are well done, and the CGI and the dinosaurs and watching dinosaurs fight is all fun, but it also is too long, and it is bumbling through too many aspects. So I would call this a poor movie. It is poor in so many ways that it's unfortunate. It's unfortunately hard to be entertained by the entertaining aspects of it, because I'm just always just bewildered by the choices made here. So also a 4 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want to go see, the conclusion to the Jurassic era, as they've been talking about, go see it. Why not? There's spectacle, there's cool stuff, there's cool shots, occasionally even. It's a mixed bag, I think, at the end of the day. That errs on the side of negative.
The Jurassic franchise goes out.
Not with a bang, but with a whimper,
I just think it goes out.
Just goes out. Eventually flickers out.
This is a picture. This is a movie.
It is a movie at the end of the day. And we'll be talking about more movies as they come out every week. Big releases, middling releases, maybe even small releases. Who's to say? Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.